Thank you. Welcome to the Planning Board meeting of January 3rd, 2017. I'll be acting as the chair tonight. Pat's not here tonight. With that, I'll take a motion for the meetings from the previous meeting.
I move we accept the minutes.
I'll
Motion
second.
from John to accept the meeting minutes, seconded by Lena. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous at 4. Seeing how it's 7:01, we were scheduled for a continued public hearing on the application of F&D Central Realty Trust for a special permit, construct Bear Hill Village. I have in front of me a request for an extension to be granted until February 7th, 2017. I'll entertain a motion to grant the extension.
Moved.
Motion by Lena.
Second.
Seconded by Babe. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous at 4, so that meeting will be scheduled for February 7th, 2017 at 7:01. I also have a, was scheduled for 7:02, the continued public hearing, application for F&D Central Realty Trust for approval of Bear Hill Village definitive plan, the 2-lot residential subdivision. I also have a request for extension in front of me to February 7th. With that, I'll take a motion to, motion by John to grant the extension to February 7th, second by Babe. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous at 4. So that one will be an extension of the public hearing for F&D Central Realty Trust for Bear Hill Village 2-lot subdivision to February 7th at 7:02 PM. Do we have the 81P, Larry?
They're not here yet, apparently,
Okay. All right, if they show up later, we'll address that.
or if not,
Or if not,
Even
they can
quicker.
show up next time.
That's right.
Next thing on the agenda is the ZBA special permit referral, 396 East Main Street, Childs Hickey. I'll read Larry's report. The applicant requests a special permit to maintain one unregistered motor vehicle on the subject property. The vehicle is a front-end loader used for snow removal. The prevailing legal opinion is that the vehicle in question is considered an unregistered motor vehicle under the zoning bylaw, and as such requires a special permit to be maintained on the property. Larry sends a recommendation for a favorable, just for reference, this is the Hickey's Package Store at the corner of Fortune Boulevard, Beaver Street. And,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Can you make that seasonal? No, better be full-time?
Well, they'd have to come back every
That's
year
true.
if we made it seasonal,
All right.
so I don't know whether we want to do that or not.
No, I guess not.
I mean, but that's, you certainly could do it if you want to,
Yeah,
but
no,
that's
that's
the only way you could do it, is to grant it for a certain period of time.
yeah, I don't,
Yeah, but and then now he's gotta go find someplace to store it.
Yeah.
This thing,
it's hard to see on the aerial because it's so faded, but you can just barely see. It's not a large end loader, it's larger than a Bobcat, but it's
Yeah.
like one of the smallest end loaders, and it's sitting right behind the
Oh, I
building,
see.
just outside the
Yeah.
white line.
Yeah, and in that location, in that area with the other buildings that are around it, I don't really think it's a,
It's
it's a
a-
problem, so I don't.
I can't see the problem anyways. It's part of being in business.
Yeah,
It's part of the business.
there's intrigue surrounding this.
Make a
that-
motion.
It's,
Well, I make a motion if we give the favorable recommendation.
Yeah, okay.
But, like I say, I don't think there should even have to be a ridiculous.
Well, I mean, I guess some people may take that and it becomes it could become an issue depending on what people do. So I think coming here, I don't have an issue with one guy doing one thing. I could see people doing multiple vehicles there and then it becoming an issue to a certain extent, so.
right.
For this one, I don't have any issue with it.
Good point.
Anyways, we have a motion from Babe to send a favorable recommendation to the zoning board. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by John. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous at 4.
Might as well do number 4, give Liz a
Need another one?
chance.
Yeah.
Give Liz a chance to get ready. You're late.
Or Lena's, I don't care.
Yeah.
Thank you. Liz, do you have the 81P? Yep. We'll do that now then.
Oh, you got it already? All right.
It's an 81P plan for Whitewood Road Snowflake LLC.
So on the corner of Whitewood and Reservoir, we're just cutting out 2 parcels. This is gonna be a frontage lot, and then this small parcel is not a buildable lot, and Kevin just wants to have that as a buffer between the proposed development back here and his property.
So where are we?
Off
This is-
Whitewood Road.
This is Reservoir Road and Whitewood Road.
Oh,
Goes to the
Runs
left.
down
Yeah.
this way.
Yeah,
It's a very wet parcel.
yeah.
Yeah, it is.
That's the Gattoni parcel?
Yes.
They need the application and the check.
Check.
Brought your checkbook, right?
Signable as submitted, Larry?
Yes.
Anybody have any questions?
no. Look. Hi, Elizabeth.
How you doing?
Good, and yourself?
Okay, you got initial to top, Larry?
Good.
Not stressed.
Yeah.
The check's in it.
Initial and date, anything, is it?
Did you sign that off, that the check is in there?
No, I just checked.
We're
I
making,
wasn't handing you an empty envelope.
atta girl.
I hadn't thought of that one.
Check made out to the town
Yeah,
of
which-
$350.
Dominic's wife went and put in
Uh,
money in the bank, come back with.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to have the town planner sign the 81P. Motion by Lena, second. Second by John. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
I,
Opposed, unanimous at 4.
Did you bring that as-built
snowflake.
for the cement plant? I talked to Bob this morning. Didn't send it. That's all right.
No.
Send it tomorrow or the next day.
I'll bring it tomorrow.
Larry, you want the request for extensions for your file?
Yes, those are the original, so-called originals.
Second ZBA special permit referral, 177 Central Street, BIK Hydraulics Limited. The applicant requests a special permit to establish a truck service and repair shop on the subject property. No additions or new buildings are being proposed. Specifically, the operation will consist of the repair of truck-mounted hydraulic equipment and the related storage of vehicles. There will be no outside storage. Amended site plan will be needed to be approved by the planning board subsequent to ZBA special permit approval. Larry makes a favorable recommendation to the zoning board or requests.
This is the former J-Cor.
Is anyone here?
Yeah. There's no problem.
The new J-Cor site at Depot
Oh,
on
Connor
Central.
Depot?
Yeah.
The site plan he's using for the special permit is one of the last site plans that was approved for J-Cor, so it's gonna need to be tweaked a little bit when he comes back, because that's not exactly the way he's gonna use it, but it shows, you know, the paved area and the building locations appropriately, so.
Yeah, did he do all the planting that was shown on here?
No.
Yeah, if you look at the aerial, which is next to the last page.
There's a row of trees there.
Yeah, I forget which year this photo was, but it's either 2015 or later. So, yeah, they're there. So it's pretty straightforward.
Any comments, questions from the board? I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to give a favorable recommendation.
Motion from Bates on a favorable recommendation to the ZBA,
Full second.
seconded by John. Any further discussion?
Give me a front page.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
I,
Opposed? Unanimous at 4.
Give me the front page.
Yep.
Thank you.
We have discussion on 2 possible zoning bylaw amendments that may not come up for next town meeting. We have not talked about either one of these prior to any of our meetings, so my intent is probably just to bring the board up to speed with what the issues are. And I know I have some questions, some of them got answered in discussions earlier, but just to bring those out, and then I believe we'll probably want to have further discussion as we move forward before the before we send anything to the selectmen and then public hearing. First one is on the retail marijuana establishment. Larry's given us a sample in our packets of the possibility of land use as to where marijuana establishments may be allowed if we go this route. And effectively, what this would do would allow them in the IB and IC districts,
Yep.
is what it's shown in here.
Uh-huh.
One of my earlier questions was how many of these are allowed, and I believe that that's somewhat been answered, and that it would be the same as liquor store, package store establishments. As of right now, that's how many would be allowed in the town of Milford. And right now, I believe it would be under the same thing as package store establishments as to where they could go, distances
So
from
that would-
schools and
That
stuff
would be
like that.
licensing requirements.
So that would be set up by the,
Well,
by
the number would be by licensing.
Yeah.
The location is what the land use, the zoning would be.
but is there not a requirement in the law in terms of their location near schools or sensitive usages or
In
not?
terms of the law that was voted on,
Yeah,
I don't remember whether there was or not, but the concern that I had, and Jerry and I had talked about doing something like this, is that with the retail sales, where it passed by, I don't know, whatever the margin was in Milford, it passed in Milford, not just statewide, that it would make some sense to make sure it's provided for somehow in the zoning bylaw, because if we stay silent on it, an argument could be made that it would be allowed anywhere any other retail use would be allowed, and that didn't seem like it was necessarily the best approach. Since we had already gone through that whole process with the medical marijuana treatment centers, which is what the actual map is showing there as to where they would be allowed, and it's in the IB and the IC zone. The footnote that's referred to, footnote 23, has the 200-foot setback and all of that stuff. All that language is in there. So my initial thought was, well, to at least start a conversation about this, one way to frame it is to take, first of all, the most inclusive definition from the new legislation, which turns out to be the phrase marijuana establishments, and that's the definition. From the statute, the only thing that's not from the statute is the last phrase, but not to include medical marijuana treatment center, because we've already defined that in our zoning bylaw. So this would be a definition we would use in the zoning bylaw to distinguish between the two. Then adjust the chart so that even though it's still separate, you can tell that it's regulated in the same way locationally from the schools and the churches and the zoning districts and all of that stuff. So it's exactly the same otherwise as medical marijuana treatment facilities, except it isn't one. It'd be basically a retail.
Right.
yeah, and I guess that's my issue. I don't believe when the people voted for it that they thought that they were going to be going to the IC or the IB districts to get marijuana. I mean, I don't think they thought it would be regulated any differently than a liquor store alcohol establishment.
Well-
And if that can be downtown, I'm not sure why this would be any different.
Well,
And I'm
no,
not for this
I don't know.
whatsoever, but I guess that's sort of my feeling in this, is that what we did for the medical marijuana, where they're growing it, and the facilities are much bigger, I believe we were totally correct in what we did. When we come down to a retail level now, and this could be a relatively small establishment, to put them into an IC, IB zone, that's gonna be my issue going forward. I mean, those are things
Right.
that I was thinking about as part of this,
Well, the bylaw right now, those two zoning districts allow for retail sales.
yeah, oh, no, I know you
And
can
in
do it,
fact-
I just don't think that that's where the thought process of
Right.
people were when they
No, I know.
voted for it.
But in fact, area-wise, town-wide, the majority of the retail operations are in those two zones. So you still have a little space downtown in CA, and you have the CC zones for the plazas. So there would be additional area, obviously, beyond the IB and the IC zone. But those zones are the largest zones in town that aren't residential, so the majority of retail uses are occurring there. The Stop and Shop Plaza is there, the Kmart Plaza is there, well, whatever it's gonna be. The Kohl's Plaza is there in that zone. So, given that, that's how I was approaching it, as a way to at least, on the locational side of the question, frame it so that you'd have something to talk at or talk to or refer to. But as far as the definition goes, I still think using the marijuana establishment phraseology out of the law, which is the most encompassing phrase of everything they defined, then captures that, but you want to make sure that you have the phrase, it doesn't include the medical marijuana treatment center.
Right,
So you've separated it on the one hand, and then you've located it on the other.
No, I don't, that I think, I agree with you on. I don't have any issue with that.
So if
That
you,
works fine.
so if you went to other districts other than the IA, or, I'm sorry,
We
the
just-
IB
yeah, we
and
just add
IC, you would want to probably not add it to the footnote 23, because footnote 23 gets into the 200-foot separation from residential zoning districts. Well, some of the remaining commercial zones aren't even 200 feet wide in some spots themselves, let alone having a setback.
yeah.
So that would be something else to consider going into those other districts.
That 200-foot zoning thing, I mean, we ran into a problem with the one we had for the medical.
Yeah, they got a variance right off the bat.
Which was in an industrial zone too, so,
Right, yeah.
you know, to think of having that is probably.
Well, I mean, and I guess the other thing we could do if we put it into those zones is by special permit, so we'd have some control over it.
Yeah, you could still leave the chart on, in section 2-3, just add the A designation to the other zoning districts where you think it's appropriate.
Right.
And you may not do it in every commercial zone, or you may do it in CA, CB, CC, IA, and leave the IB and IC.
Right.
Special permit in all of them. I mean, when this whole thing first
Yeah, you could
started,
do that,
even
yeah.
with the medical marijuana,
Right.
personally, I didn't see what the difference was between having that and the CVS
It's
on the corner anyway. But the town was concerned and wanted to have the regulations, so that's why we wrote what we wrote. Yeah, so,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that may be something that we'd want to think about as to whether we want to do a special permit.
yeah.
Maybe in the other zones we don't, maybe down there we would do it as an acceptable, in the other zones we do it as special permit. I think those are the discussions we'll need to have going forward.
I totally agree with
Our
you,
friend's
Joe.
got his hand up.
Oh,
It's not a public hearing,
I spoke with Mr. Duncan earlier tonight, and he thought possibly I could be able to speak briefly tonight about this issue.
well,
yeah, you can very, very briefly, because this is the
I would like
first
to
board discussion that we've had on it.
Speak briefly about it.
Go ahead.
I mean, if you want now or later. I
No,
just
right
wanna
now.
make sure.
That's
Right
fine.
now. You have a book?
This is brief.
Is this brief?
This is brief. I
Cut you
don't,
off if it
I
isn't.
don't believe I have a reputation for being overly long-winded.
Please leave your name, tell us your
My
name.
name's Jamie Wheelock.
And where you live.
I live on Cuniff Ave. I want to speak tonight because I recognize that even though marijuana has been legalized by the voters of Massachusetts, the longtime prohibition of marijuana has created a stigmatization that will prevent many of our neighbors from speaking openly about their own responsible recreational use of marijuana. I wish that Milford's doctors and nurses, lawyers and managers, executives and administrators could speak freely about their use of marijuana through history.
This is about the location.
Yes.
This has nothing to do with what you're talking about.
I'm getting there.
That's right.
There are carpenters, painters, entrepreneurs, countless others of our friends and neighbors who will be appreciative of the normalization of retail marijuana. That is what you guys are speaking about tonight, where to locate these things. Contrary to what Mr. Duncan said about having, that everyone's fine with having it be where the grow facilities are, in fact, not many people thought that retail marijuana would require going to the industrial section to buy marijuana. As I I hope that the planning board will be only as restrictive, will pass only as restrictive regulations as applies to other stores like salons, pharmacies, convenience stores, liquor stores, storefront churches, and used car lots in town. Mostly, I want to impress upon the planning board that when you do schedule public hearings to get public input on retail marijuana regulations and locations, you should recognize that the long history of prohibition and related stigmatization of 30-plus years of anti-drug propaganda will make it difficult for many Milford residents to speak in favor of marijuana for reasons related to job security, or, even though it is a legal substance, their perceived negative opinions of their neighbors. I urge you people to be as liberal and relaxed about the locations for retail marijuana use.
Thank you.
I hope that was brief enough.
Not bad. Better.
It's unusual, but not bad.
I mean, just to comment on that, the fact of the matter is, we can't read people's minds. If they don't want to come in, that's their choice, but at the end of the day, it's, part of the decision is what people say or not. We can't read what's into them, so.
Right.
Town meeting would make the final decision if on a
Well, town meeting's gonna
zoning
make final
amendment.
decision, but certainly we'll be making at the least a recommendation.
Recommendation, exactly.
All right, we're gonna move to residential animal.
Yep. Yeah, unless there's anything else anybody wants to talk about at this point.
No, this was good.
So that'll be coming back at some point in the future. We'll,
That's a good start.
It is.
yeah, well, at least Larry's also heard our comments to a certain extent. He can take a look at it and see how some of those changes may or may not be incorporated and what it would look like. The other one is residential animals. And in the packet, we have a use regulation schedule. And what were the changes in this one, Larry? I didn't have a chance to
Well, this
look
is
at
the
it.
existing bylaw
This is the existing
that
bylaw?
shows the residential animals in the use chart are by special permit in the residential zones, R, A, B, C, and D, and then again by special permit in the CB, CC, IA, and IB zones. But when you look at the definition on the second page in the packet, that's the current definition. So residential animals defined as animals or birds kept and maintained for the private use of the permanent residence of a single family or two-family residential property upon the issuance of a special permit by the ZBA. And after a specific finding that the keeping of such animals or fowl will not cause any discernible inconvenience or annoyance to abutters, and after a specific finding that the keeping of such animals or fowl is an accessory use to a single family or two-family residence. And then it goes further, the last sentence, residential animals shall not include 3 dogs or 3 cats or any household pet which is normally kept within a dwelling unit. So if we're not talking about pets, then the question is whether or not, and this is something that the building official and I run into quite often, and you guys see it occasionally on the special permits that come through,
Right.
is that in many cases, I've recommended a negative comment be forwarded to the ZBA. The board has forwarded a negative comment to the ZBA on the instances where they're real tight neighborhoods. And if they're, fairly dense, small lots, it's typically a negative recommendation. So we were thinking that maybe one way to get at this a little bit better is to look at least the RA zone, if not the RB zone, the 2 densest zoning districts in town, at least in terms of the minimum lot size in the zoning regulations, and not allow them there anymore. I mean, people can still have pets, but this whole residential animal thing, in some instances, is getting out of hand. Now, granted, some of the situations that have even led to lawsuits are not in an RA or an RB zone at all. They're in other zones that just happen to have some non-conforming small lot development. But for the most part, the really intense stuff is in the RA zone. So just as a suggestion or something to ponder, whether or not it would make sense to begin to change right at the beginning where they could occur at all. And my suggestion would be to not allow them in the RA zone at all anymore. Still have the pets, but you wouldn't be able to have what the bylaw calls residential animals. So,
Yeah, I don't know that we've ever sent a favorable recommendation to somebody in the
We have
RA
not.
zone to begin with, so I
exactly.
mean, to me, I wouldn't have an issue with that whatsoever. I don't believe they really belong in the RA zone where our RA zone is. I think that's, as you move along in zoning and timeframe, I think that's the normal course of events in the close downtown core outside of the business district. That isn't the area where you have agricultural animals, so I don't have an issue with changing that in that sense. I don't know, the other board members.
No, I agree.
Could we have a pen size so big per,
Lot size?
no,
A pen.
they have to be kept in a
We
pen.
can, yep.
And it's so many square feet or cubic feet per,
And not able to roam, I mean,
yes.
the thing is the roaming,
Well,
within
but that's what
within
the-
the neighbors.
That's kind of what the ZBA is doing at the special permit level. They're looking on a lot-by-lot basis, on a case-by-case basis, about the particulars of that proposal, and they get into that stuff occasionally. What I
Right.
was talking about is, don't even let the case get that far.
I got no problem with that either. So I'm
But
just-
then the question is if that's a viable way to approach it, and I don't know, maybe that's overkill, but I think it's a viable way to approach it, then is just eliminating it from the RA zone, which is all of this, and all of that. That might be a good place to start.
I think there's some parcels in the RB zone that are big enough that I wouldn't
Right.
eliminate them off, just
Yeah.
off of I have no problem with doing it going forward in the RA. I wouldn't spread it to the RB because there are some that are,
I mean, this is
to me, they're
clearly,
borderline that they should be
Yeah.
able to have them.
yeah, this is clearly not the pressing issue that the other one's gonna be, in
I
terms of
agree.
trying to get something going, but because we've been talking about it for quite a while, I figured I'd
The
bring it
problem
forward.
is the lots that are in the RB zone, that were in the 10,000 square foot, there's quite a few of them. They used to be in the 10,000 square foot RB zone, which are now still 10,000 square feet in a 15,000 square foot.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. No, I think I mean,
You take-
allowing them by special permit, you get to say yay or nay. In the RB
Yeah.
zone, there are ones that I think it could fit. In the RA zone, I don't think there's,
take
you know, where it is,
Harding
it-
Street and all
Yeah.
up there, they're all 10,000 square foot lots.
the other thing I noticed on here though, although I guess it doesn't matter anyways, because we say single-family or two-family dwellings, but we eliminate the first three dogs or cats anyway, so then in a multifamily, you're still able to have a pet.
Yes.
Right.
So, yeah, you wouldn't, and if it were if it were a three-family outside of that zone, then that's a then they can't have it, but I don't think
anyway.
that's a big issue.
All right.
Okay,
That it?
that's it, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move
Make-
to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by John to adjourn, seconded by Babe, all those in favor?
I.
Opposed, unanimous at 4. Thank you and good night.